Hello and God bless you. Today I want to talk to you about the cost of worship. The cost of worship. When my wife goes to the grocery store and she is a tremendous shopper, she can make the money stretch. She can get some great values and some great deals. But when we go together, I prefer, sometimes I don't, but I prefer to sit in the car because I'm not much of a shopper and I know she's going to be a while. Now she's very cost conscious and she takes as much time as necessary to get the most for the money. Whatever she is willing to pay is an indication of how much value she attaches to what she wants. If she values it a lot, she'll pay a higher cost. Whatever you value the most, you're willing to pay the most for. I want you to hear me now. Just for a moment, I want us to look at Job. In this narrative, Job places a high value on his relationship with God. He was willing to worship God in spite of his great losses. And the fact that he had no answer to the question of why, yet maintained his worship, speaks volumes about Job. How many times have you gone through things and asked God why, and there was silence? How many times have you searched in vain to understand why you've taken so many blows and God was silent? But sometimes you got to worship God when God ain't talking and you ain't understanding. Many times when life hits you with trouble, you have time to recover between the blows. But Job had no such recovery time because he was hit with a combination of punches in rapid succession. But because he valued his relationship with God and valued who God is, the punches he took never knocked the worship out of him. You know what? The enemy is trying to knock worship out of you. The enemy wants to find out if your worship is for real. For a moment, I want to talk to you about the cost of Job's worship and the cost it was that he was willing to pay. He paid even though he didn't know it was a test of his motive for worshiping God. You see, the satanic premise was that Job only worshiped God because God had blessed him and kept calamities away from him. But the enemy said that if you stretch out your hand and strike all that he has, he will curse you to your face. Curses are words that are offensive and profane, from which we get the word profanity. Basically, he's saying that Job will cuss you out. The enemy wanted to change what Job was saying about God. Instead of speaking blessings, he wanted him to speak curses. You may be in a hard place right now, and the enemy wants you to change your vocabulary toward God, but the Bible says that in all of this, Job sinned not. Sometimes you got to bless God through your pain, bless God through your suffering, bless him when you understand, and bless him when you don't. Bless the Lord at all times, and let the praises of God be in your mouth. Job didn't know that he was being tested, but he paid the cost of worship in spite of what he did not know. He paid, even though he didn't know that God had placed limitations on what the enemy could do. Don't you know that God knows your load limit? One time I was driving across a small bridge, and in front of the bridge, it gave the weight limit that the bridge could sustain. Anything beyond that limit was dangerous. God knows your load limit and will not allow you to be tempted above that which you are able. Before he allows you to be crushed by the weight of this trial, he'll give you a way to escape that you may be able to bear it. Whatever you're dealing with may seem unbearable, but the fact that you are bearing the load says that you are equipped to handle it. You can carry it. Job didn't know that his load had limits, but he paid the cost of worship anyhow. He paid. He paid even though he didn't know that God had restoration in mind from the beginning. He didn't know that at the conclusion of this catastrophe, God would give him double for the trouble. On the other side of what you're going through, there is a blessing waiting on you. God is blessing you in your trouble, and he's going to bless you when you come out. It's in the nature of God to bless. Deuteronomy 15:6 says, "For the Lord your God will bless you as he has promised, and that you may lend to many nations, and that you won't have to borrow. You will rule over many nations, but none will rule over you." Job didn't know that before this trial began, God had restoration in mind. And brother, God Brother, sister, God has restoration in mind for you. He's going to give you the grace to bounce back. How many times has He given you bounce back grace because you didn't lose your worship in your wilderness experience? It was painful, but you paid the cost of worship. Pay the cost of worship, and God will bless. Again, this is Bishop Kenyon, and I want to invite you to come worship with us this Sunday morning at the Assembly of Truth. We're located 350 Hills Avenue, Southwest Atlanta, 30313. And if you need a ride, just give us a call, 404-228-6969. Once again, that's 404-228-6969. And remember, as you walk it out, you'll see God work it out. The Lord bless you.